Is this side supposed to go up, right?
Yep, you got it. All right, we're ready.
Live? Okay. Hi, guys. What is today? It's Tuesday, and I am Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, your immigration attorney here on Tuesdays and Thursdays to provide you with news updates on immigration, of which there are always many these days. And we'll talk through your frequently asked questions. Not frequently asked. I've got some of your questions. I'll prioritize your live questions. And then we always finish up with an action tip of the week for those of you who are concerned about what's going on in the realm of immigration and you want to make a difference, but you don't really know how. These are just small ways that you can help out and give back. So as a reminder, my firm, Lincoln Goldfinch Law, is an immigration firm that's based in Austin, Texas, but we are a virtual law firm and immigration law is federal. So we can represent people all over the 50 United States. Our mission is to bring peace of mind and security to immigrant families. So obviously we've got our work cut out for us, and I appreciate you being here with me today. Let's start with the news of the week. Of course, everybody's been watching the protests that erupted in Los Angeles. They have been, for the most part, peaceful protests. There have been, some Waymos got destroyed, but for the most part, they were peaceful protests, and yet the National Guard was called in and co-opted by the Trump administration through an executive order with much pushback from Governor Newsom in California. So typically it's the state governors who control and deploy the National Guard. It is rare and unprecedented for the federal government, the president, to step in, especially in opposition to the governor over a protest. And on top of that, the Marines have also been called in. This is concerning. This is really, really concerning stuff that's going down. We had some protests here in Austin last night. Tear gas was deployed by APD. I will also say that there are, I heard some reports last night of some bait protests being planned. So these were being planned potentially by people who wanted to incite violence at these protests for the purpose of drawing law enforcement action. So just be thoughtful. The truth is, guys, there's so much to do here, and there's so much strong emotion, and how you show up at a protest and how you behave is really a personal decision. And I'm just not going to opine on that. But just be cautious, and let's keep watching out about what's going on at these protests, because it is really concerning what's happening. The next thing is the travel ban took effect yesterday. Today's Tuesday, so yesterday, Monday, the new travel ban took effect. It affects 19 countries, including Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela. So it's not just a Muslim travel ban aimed at majority Muslim countries. There are a few other countries involved. It is going to impact people who don't have visas, don't have green cards, or who are applying to come into the United States. There were not mass reports of chaos or disruption at the airports yesterday as the travel ban took effect, but we'll be watching that really closely and sharing with you guys any travel tips or information that you need to know. If you don't already follow me on the socials, please do that. I'm doing pretty much daily videos, if not multi-videos a day, on updates and changes. As soon as there are breaking news, I will share it. I will share information about raids that are occurring and things like that. And I don't spread just rumors for fear mongering. I'm careful about the information that I share. So if you want to stay up to date, do follow me on the socials. But anyway, the travel ban is in effect. And there's a lot of other rallies and protests going on. There was one this weekend in San Antonio. There's another one coming up this weekend in Austin at the Capitol on Saturday from 5 to 8. I will be there. I invite you guys to come and let your voices be heard. And hopefully we can start to see some quieting down of the law enforcement reaction. A lot of this is, I think, it's bait, right? The Trump administration would like to see protesters get destructive and violent so that they can justify their police state reaction. They want to turn us into a police state. And that's a big part of the big, beautiful bill. I hate that name. Like, I don't even want to use the word. The BBB contains, how much trillions of dollars in law enforcement, specifically around immigration. So a lot of this stuff is, not only is it a distraction by the Trump administration from other stuff that's going on, the moves on the vaccines that Kennedy's making and all of that. But the Trump administration really would like to see protesters get violent and be squashed, and for them to be able to justify more law enforcement activity. That's what's going on, and it's real creepy. It's real creepy, and I hope everybody's paying very close attention to that. And as always, talking to your legislators. I know we hear that a lot, but we got to do it. We got to keep doing it, because they tally these calls. When you call your congressman, they're not going to pick up the phone. You're not going to talk to your congressman. You're going to talk to a voicemail box, and you're going to, leave a quick message, and you're going to say, I'm a constituent, and I'm really concerned about the National Guard being deployed by the president and the Marines being sent on domestic soil to go after U.S. citizens. This is not okay. Say that to your congressman. If you have nowhere else to say it there. They make a tally, and all of this stuff will impact the way that legislation moves through, like the big, beautiful bill. So please do take your time and let your voices be heard. All right, thanks. I see your comments and questions coming in. I'm going to move to the questions. So Chispa de Bomba in Instagram. Can humanitarian parolees from Cuba still apply for the Cuban Adjustment Act? Yes, that's law. That has not been changed by Congress. So Cubans can still adjust status to permanent residence 1 year after their entry, but it is not a safe time to be Cuban in the United States. Cubans and Venezuelans are definitely some of the groups that the Trump administration is going after. We've talked a lot about the courthouse detentions and the ICE check-ins. Most Cubans over the last, 5 or 6 years who were paroled in were also placed in removal proceedings, right? Not just paroled in and released not on some radar. And when someone is in removal proceedings, they go to court and they have ICE check-ins, right? So you have these two processes going at the same time. And people who are going to court, what's happening in many of these cases is ICE is moving to dismiss the case. The judges are acquiescing, and then ICE is detaining these people. And a lot of Cuban parolees are being swept up in these courthouse detentions. This is also happening at the ICE check-in. So somebody who doesn't have court scheduled until 2027 or 2028 still has to go to ICE check-ins. And ICE is detaining people at those check-ins, even people who were paroled in, because they are taking the perspective or the argument, they're making the argument that they can expeditedly remove people who were apprehended within 2 years of their entry or paroled in. So this is what ICE is doing right now. There is litigation pending on this. And so it's hopefully going to change. Hopefully the federal courts will block this. There's, the ACLU, thank you ACLU, is bringing lawsuits, etc. But Cubans who were paroled in, who want to adjust status, need to be acting as fast as possible. You need to have an immigration attorney. You need to take care if you have a court date or a check-in, and have a plan and make sure you understand what risks you're facing if you decide to go or not go. These are very difficult, impossible decisions for a person to make. And the best thing you can do is at least be informed when you make these hard choices. So in TikTok, Mile, do you think this is quite similar to what happened with the Holocaust? I certainly understand the parallels. We are taking a whole subsection of people and beginning to round them up and detain them and disappear them and send them to places like El Salvador and torture camps, and it's ratcheting up and it's getting worse. So a lot of the scholars who have studied the beginning of the Holocaust and the actions of Hitler in the early days of the Holocaust, in the ways that he took over control of the executive branch, of the congressional branch, of the judicial branch, the methodical way in which he took over ultimate control and started subjugating and then ultimately murdering a whole group of people, that is those early action steps are being repeated now. So I know that there's a lot of weight to a comparison to the Holocaust, and it's a very heavy thing to throw around. But the smart people who have studied this and gotten PhDs are talking about the parallels. That's what I can share. So I think it's if you start to feel that way, research it. You know, that you don't have to trust me. Go out and research it and listen to the people who really know what they're talking about, and you'll see that they're drawing comparisons. From Cheese Spicy, your follow-up, what about humanitarian parolees' work visas? It's unclear if they can still work. So if you came in on the CHMV parole program and you got a work permit, the program has been canceled. They have to individually revoke status. They can't just, blanket revoke all these work permits without notice to each of these people. So pay attention to your notice. And your individual work permit shouldn't be revoked until you get notice of that, but definitely be looking for an alternate way to protect yourself. Asylum is going to be the most obvious way for Cubans and Venezuelans, especially who are fleeing political oppression. You guys, if you're under parole, please, or TPS, please also apply for asylum, because that's one of the ways to stop an expedited removal. If ICE is trying to deport everyone who was apprehended within 2 years of their entry. And one of the ways to stop an expedited removal is to apply for asylum. And you have to go through a credible fear interview, and there's a whole process. But if they already know someone has an asylum application pending, it provides some additional protection. So definitely pursue that. TikTok Mama, tengo un caso, pero no ha sido aprobado. Si no me aprueban, corro riesgo que me deporten. Todavía no estamos viendo arrestos de gente que han sido negado por un trámite de inmigración. Todavía es seguro. The question from Mama was, if I have a case pending with immigration and they deny it, will I be deported? And my answer is not. That's not what we're seeing right now. Of course, it's hard for me to say, no, that won't happen, because they're doing all sorts of things I could never have imagined. But right now, that is not what we're seeing. I've never seen that in 20 years. I'm a permanent resident, but my nationality is on the banned countries list recently announced by the president. How can I seek protection to avoid deportation? They can't revoke status of green card holders on the travel ban list. So if you already have your green card, you're safe. You might want to talk to someone before you travel, but even with a green card, you should be able to leave and re-enter, but definitely talk to a lawyer before you go. Melanie Page, should the undocumented people stay away from the embassy and not renew? Melanie, can you tell me more about your question when you're talking about renewal? And do you mean like the embassy of their own country? Do you mean like someone who's undocumented in the U.S. might go to the Mexican consulate to renew their passport? Is that what you mean? Let me know. But if that's what you're talking about, what I can say is embassies and consulates of other countries in the United States are diplomatically protected. They are their own entity and jurisdiction. And so ICE can't, this is one of the only places, for example, where ICE can't go in is the consulate or the embassy of another country. So you could go to the Mexican consulate and renew your passport. If that's your question, let me know. Okay, Jackie Hernandez in TikTok, what comes after the I-130? Okay, it depends on the case, but the I-130 is the family petition. So this is where you have either the U.S. citizen or the permanent resident, and then the immigrant who's being petitioned by that person. And it could be a spouse, it could be a parent, child, a brother for U.S. citizens. And so if that person is in the United States and they entered legally and they are the immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, you can file what's called a one-step. So you file the I-130 plus the green card application all at once. It's a one-step application. It's an adjustment. They get the green card. But if this is not an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, let's say it's the spouse of a permanent resident, or it's the immediate relative of a U.S. citizen who did not enter the country legally, then you have to do a multi-step process. And you do the I-130, right? And once that gets approved, if that person has been unlawfully present in the United States, if they're here and they're undocumented, step 2 is the I-601A. That's a waiver of unlawful presence, and it's based on hardship to the qualifying relative or the petitioner. So step 1 is the I-130, step 2 is the waiver, step 3 is the consular process where you go abroad and you get permission to come back in. So it's a 3-step process typically. En TikTok, Marisol, ¿qué pasa con la visa U? La visa, nada ha pasado con la visa U, sigue normal, los casos están siendo aprobados, no hay problemas con el proceso de la visa U, que es la visa para víctimas de delitos. The question is, what's going on with the U visa, the crime victims visa? Nothing. That's a law passed by Congress. That has not changed or been impacted by the Trump administration. That would require congressional action. That has not occurred. Chrissy, I love the wings. Thank you. I love them too. Aren't they so pretty? Thank you for sharing all this information. I appreciate your comment and thank you for being here with me. Feel free to share. I don't know if you could share a live on TikTok, actually. I'm not very TikTok fluent. I have help going live. But anyway, thank you. If a family member is a U.S. citizen, but I come from a restricted country, what can I do to stay with them? So this is the problem with the travel ban. This is impacting families where people can't reunite or come together when the immigrant or the person who doesn't yet have status is on the travel ban country. So I think we just have to wait for litigation to resolve this issue. But if you already were in process or something like that, reach out and talk to a lawyer and let's see if there's maybe something that we can do to help you. I think there's a lot about this travel ban that won't survive litigation. There's some of it that will and some of it that won't. And with all of these policies, I mean, including these courthouse detentions, travel ban, like the National Guard, any of the new stuff that Trump does, they are so aggressive in breaking the law, right? They don't care. They really don't care what the law says. They're just going to do it and wait to get sued and make the courts tell them no. Well, that process takes at best several weeks and at normal times a couple of months. So there's usually a few weeks to a couple of months of time where we're like, is this going to go? Are the courts going to allow this? This is absolutely horrific. I can't believe this is happening, right? And so now we've seen several iterations of this in the second administration, and we're in another moment. They're ratcheting up what they're doing once again. With the travel ban, with the courthouse detentions, with the National Guard. They are like, pouring gasoline on a smoldering fire. That's what they're doing. It's intentional. And we are hopefully waiting for the courts to do something about it. So shout out to the impact litigators of the world, the people from ACLU and MALDEF, Texas Civil Rights Project, all these organizations that bring important lawsuits that get a lot of these policies enjoined. We are so grateful to you. You are so important to our democracy. Thank you very much. Okay, Melanie, follow-up question. Can I stay outside of the consulate? I'm trying to learn so I can educate anyone that may need it. So is it impossible for undocumented to apply for protection in the U.S.? Melanie, so ICE can't go in to another country's property, which are embassies and consulates. So for example, you might start to see some events held at the consulate. The Mexican consulate in Austin is really helpful to the community, and they might have Know Your Rights events. In fact, my law firm goes in once a month or twice a month to give a Know Your Rights presentation to the people at the consulate, and ICE can't come in there. So that is a safe place to gather, one of the last safe places to gather actually under this era. And to the follow-up question, Melanie, about can undocumented people apply? No, definitely undocumented people can and should be applying for protection in the United States. And this is something that this is a message that I really want to get across. Don't go, if you are undocumented and you qualify for legal status, don't just go into hiding and not file anything. File your case, protect yourself, get yourself in legal status. I don't have the exact numbers on me right now, but every month at my firm, we're getting, 50 new green cards, 200 new work permits. It's like people are getting legal status and they're moving into being documented and protected. These are programs that are laws that were passed by Congress that Trump just can't go in and revoke. They can affect enforcement, but there's a lot that they can't do. They aren't empowered to do. And so for people who are undocumented, please consult with a lawyer. And if you qualify for something, apply for it. This is how you protect yourself. Okay, Kissy Martinez. If I applied to asylum, but the country is listed in the ban list, will I get in trouble? No. You're not going to get into trouble for applying for asylum. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. You can move forward with your asylum application, but have a lawyer. If you are on a travel ban list and you've got an asylum case pending, have a lawyer so that we can prepare. Like if something were to occur, we could respond really quickly. And I will just say we're expanding our services at my law firm for detained cases. It's not something we've done a ton of historically. We've always represented our own clients who got detained, but we didn't do a lot of detention work. Well, now we're expanding that because it's occurring more often. And so we're going to be able to take more cases at Lincoln Goldfinch Law. So feel free to call us if you're worried about getting detained or if you know someone who's been detained. Roxanne Musquiz, where are you located? I'm trying to find a lawyer for my husband. So our offices are located in Austin by the Fiesta on 40th Street, but we are a virtual law firm. We went virtual in COVID, so we've been virtual for years, and federal immigration law is federal, so our clients are all over the United States, and we can do consultations via Zoom, which is really helpful. So people don't have to be out driving or leave their house. So reach out and we can help you virtually wherever you are, Roxanne. Jackie, my mom was approved for an I-130 in 2014. Can you apply for the new waiver now? Yeah, you can do it now. The one thing about an I-130 is that once the I-130 is approved, if it gets sent to the National Visa Center, they have a policy that you have to communicate with them once a year, or they'll move forward with terminating the case. So if after 2 years they haven't heard from you, they will terminate the petition and you have to start over. So you want to make sure you've kept up that communication, Jackie. If you haven't, we could start over. So reach out and we can help you figure that out. We're providing free consultations, by the way, guys. Right now, we're not charging for our consultations. So it's a 10-minute evaluation on phone just to see if you qualify for a service that we could offer. And if you do, then you get a free consultation. So there's really no risk in reaching out. Everything's confidential. And this is true for any lawyer. This is another reason to talk to a lawyer instead of a notario. Everything is confidential and protected when you talk to a lawyer. We are ethically prohibited legally from disclosing who our clients are, what they've told us. Any of that information is really protected with the lawyer. So there's no risk in reaching out to us, talking to us, and we'll help you figure things out. Melanie, why can't the blue states band together and refuse to financially or racially help the government? Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think, basically what we need is the Democratic Party to really band together and to provide a platform that really draws people and helps people understand what Democrats are all about. But we're in a moment of a bad combination of a strong and oppressive dictatorial fascist Republican Party that's led by a leader who is headed toward becoming a dictator with a party that won't stand up to him. And the other side is weak and fractured and disjointed. It's a bad combo of what's happening right now. But that's a little outside the scope of this life. We could have these conversations. I don't know. Let me know if you have comments or thoughts on that. Would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, Leonel en Facebook. ¿Puedo viajar a otro estado por avión solo con mi permiso de trabajo? Sí, pero necesita una licencia que es un Real ID que tiene la estrella en la esquina arriba, okay? So se necesita el permiso de trabajo y la licencia que es aprobada bajo Real ID. The question is, can I travel to another state with my work permit? The answer is yes, but you also need a Real ID document. Ever since May 7th, you need a Real ID approved document, and so that's going to have a little gold star at the top of your driver's license. Ronald López, ¿cómo va el caso de mi esposa? Ronald, si usted es cliente de nosotros, si puedes mandarnos un mensaje directo porque no tengo la información ahorita y prefiero comunicar en privado sobre el caso. So, si puede mandar un mensaje directo a nosotros, el equipo te va a contactar. Gracias. Kissy, what is happening with special juvenile visas? Nothing right now. Nothing's happening. So SIJ visas are visas that are for children who were abandoned, abused, or neglected by one of their parents. So a lot of minors who are undocumented qualify for SIJ if they are the child of a single parent or anything like that. You can do an SIJ, and you have to get a family court order supporting this child, and then you have to file with immigration for SIJ protection. Then you have to wait the priority date and then get the green card. And all of that is status quo right now. How long is a FOIA taking from Kenya? It really depends, Kenya, on the agency, because a FOIA is a Freedom of Information Act request to a federal agency for their records. And it really depends. It should, I would say the average of all of the agencies is maybe about 6 months, but some are weeks and some are a couple of years. So it really depends. Keep the questions coming, guys. I really appreciate all the interactions. Melanie, is marrying an undocumented person out of the question at this point? No, totally not. No. If an undocumented person marries a U.S. citizen, that opens up avenues for them to get their green card. Now, their immigration history is going to affect how fast that happens and how easy it is. Like if they have entries and exits, they might have a bar. But if they have unlawful presence and they entered one time without a visa, you can do the consular process. It just takes several years. But if they enter with a visa, you can do a one step and they can get their green card rather quickly. But there's also other exceptions. Like if there's been any cruelty in the marriage, they can get their green card. If anybody served in the military or the armed forces, or if there's like some old petition from immigration from before 2001. So there's all these exceptions for people who are married to U.S. citizens. But one of the fastest, easiest ways to get legal status for an undocumented person is through marriage to a U.S. citizen. Now, I don't recommend marriage fraud, right? Because you don't want to just marry somebody to get them a green card. There are criminal and civil penalties for that behavior, and everybody could get hurt by that. And it harms the valid cases, right? Whenever there's a case of marriage fraud, it makes all of the real cases be more suspect. So just in general, that's not a good idea. Like if somebody's like, I want to help an immigrant, I'm going to marry somebody. Not good for them, not good for the system overall. Do not recommend. But if you actually love a U.S. citizen and want to share a life with them, marriage can look a lot of different ways. I'm not going to prescribe how the marriage has to look. But if this is a true marriage for love, heck yeah, all day long, do it. Kissy, I read that while a person applies for SIJ, they do not have protected status. They don't until they get deferred action. So there's remember SIJ is family court, USCIS, deferred action, green card application. So assuming it's like a 4-year process, I would say years 1 and 2, unprotected, years 2 through 4 protected. So yes and no. But it's always been that way. That's not different. Okay. Okay, great. I have a student visa and I live with family members who are permanent residents, but I'm afraid if I get detained, could they also harass or detain my family? Not if they have green cards. So if your family is protected and they have green cards, they don't have to worry about getting detained. Now, we are hearing cases, of course, on social media like, oh, this U.S. citizen got detained or this permanent resident got detained. Those are errors by and they might be negligent errors, but there's no systematic legal way that they are detaining permanent residents. So I would feel comfortable saying, don't worry. If you are, in a valid student visa and you live with permanent residents, don't worry. Where you have to start to think about how you're impacting the people that you live with is if you are undocumented and you don't show up for a hearing. And so this is why, going back to this impossible decision that many people have where they're in some court process and they have an ICE check-in or a court hearing scheduled and they don't want to show up for obvious reasons. But if you don't show up, what that means is that ICE can come and get you at your house or your place of work. And then anybody who's around you in an event like that could get swept up in it. So there are people who, even though they know that there's a risk of being detained, at their court hearing or their check-in, they still decide to go because they don't want ICE to show up at their house and arrest their children, I mean, and it's like, Lord have mercy. These are the worst decisions for a person to have to make. And I'm so sorry that we are in this situation. It's awful. And I hope that it doesn't last. And these are, again, it's like the best thing we can do in these moments is be informed and understand the consequences of every potential action we might take. And that's really, I think, where a good lawyer comes in. A lawyer who says everybody should do this or everybody should do that is not giving nuanced and respectful advice about these difficult choices. The best advice, this is how you know, in my opinion, that you're getting good advice, is when somebody helps you understand, if you do this, this is what could happen. If you do that other thing, this is what could happen. And you make the decision for your own life because you are fully capable of that. Kissy, June 6th, 2020. Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. So categorically considering deferred action. So that is when the SIJ is approved on this end. Like, so court order, apply for and get deferred action and then get the green card. I think we're in a wait and see moment. There's been a lot of back and forth on deferred action under SIJs. So I think we have to wait and see. And it's not a moment to say like, okay, every kid who gets deferred action, who gets SIJ approval won't get deferred action and they're all going to be picked up. I think it's still pretty up in the air, but I'll follow it and keep talking about it. And I appreciate you bringing it up, Kissy. Thank you. Okay, let's wrap up. Thanks for all the questions today, guys. I'll be here on Thursday in Spanish. I'm going to give you your action item of the week. This is for the folks who are desperately wanting to do something. You're watching everything that's going down. You're not in the immigration field. You don't know what to do. Always, always, always be calling your legislators. But your action tip of the week is to share. Go visit an immigrant-owned business in your community, whether it's a restaurant or a dry cleaner or a bar or whatever, a store, whatever it is. Go visit it, talk to the owner, take a picture of yourself there, give them a 5-star review, post about it on social media, talk about how great it is that this person is an immigrant and they're contributing to this country. Like, just start blasting the conversation about how awesome immigrants are, how much they provide to the fabric of this country, the diversity of this country, and how much we appreciate them and are grateful for them. I see the comments about how to contact us. The easiest way, honestly, is just send me a DM. I've got a whole team on the socials, and they will respond to you immediately. If you guys have questions or you want to set up a consultation, just DM us. But if you want to call us, the phone number is 512-599-8500. And I look forward to talking to some of you. Thanks for being here with me. See you on Thursday en español.